A man named Angel worked as a paramedic whose job was to transport people to the hospital, whether they were accident victims or even the deceased. Every day, Angel worked alongside his friend Ricardo, an ambulance driver, as well as the rest of the paramedic crew. But Angel had a disturbing habit that no one knew about. Whenever he transported patients, he would secretly steal valuable items from them. Expensive glasses, gold jewelry, and anything worth money would often disappear into his pockets. Most of the time, Angel either kept the stolen items for himself or sold them to a local thug and fence named Fermin, who specialized in dealing with stolen valuables. Outside of work, Angel lived in an apartment with his longtime girlfriend, Vanessa, better known as Fanny. She was still attending college while also working part-time to support herself. The couple had been together for quite a while, but despite their efforts, they still had no children. Angel's flaws went far beyond stealing from patients. He constantly blamed Fanny for their inability to start a family, insisting that there must be something wrong with her body. Eventually, Angel decided to undergo a fertility test with a specialist. The results revealed something he never expected. The problem was not Fanny at all. Angel himself had poor sperm quality. The doctor recommended an extremely expensive IVF treatment as their best option. But Angel's pride and selfishness got in the way. Rather than telling Fanny the truth, he chose to keep the results hidden from her. Then one night, while responding to another emergency call with Ricardo, everything changed. During the trip, the patient they were transporting suddenly suffered a severe seizure. Ricardo became distracted behind the wheel, and within seconds, the ambulance was involved in a serious accident. The crash left Angel partially paralyzed from the waist down. He was forced to use a wheelchair and began undergoing therapy in the hope of walking again someday. In a single moment, the life of a paramedic changed forever. This is the paramedic. Naturally, the accident devastated him, but unfortunately, it did not make him reflect on the way he had treated others. Instead, Angel became even more difficult to live with. He constantly ordered Fanny around and picked fights with her, despite the fact that she had taken on extra jobs to make up for the income he could no longer earn. He even lashed out at Ricardo when his former co-worker visited to apologize for the accident. Angel blamed him entirely for what had happened. As time passed, Fanny often stayed out late for college projects or worked overnight shifts at her part-time job. Angel's growing insecurity and suspicion slowly took over. Given the opportunity, he secretly installed spyware on Fanny's phone, allowing him to monitor everything she did directly from his laptop. One morning, after Fanny returned home from her part-time job, Angel immediately started blaming her. He claimed he had spent the entire night in pain because he could not find his medication. What Fanny did not know was that Angel had already found the medicine, taken it himself, and deliberately hidden the bottle under the bed. He did all of this simply because he felt lonely and wanted attention whenever Fanny worked late into the night. Despite everything she sacrificed for him, Angel continued to doubt her loyalty and question her intentions. His behavior became even more disturbing. Unable to sleep because of a neighbor's barking dog, Angel secretly fed the animal meat filled with needles, intentionally harming it just to silence the noise. As Angel continued spying on Fanny's phone, he began hearing conversations that forced him to confront the truth about himself. He listened as Fanny spoke with her friends. She insisted that she had left his medication exactly where she always did. Her friends also described Angel as cruel and controlling and encouraged her to leave the relationship for good. For the first time, Angel felt genuinely guilty. Wanting to repair the damage he had caused, he prepared a romantic dinner for Fanny. He also tried to support her studies by planning to renovate his late grandmother's old room into a dedicated space where she could focus on college work. These gestures were his attempt to apologize for the way he had treated her, but despite his efforts, Angel remained deeply frustrated by his condition. During their intimate moments, he was constantly reminded that he still had no feeling in the lower half of his body. Then everything fell apart. One day, while Angel was in the bathroom, Fanny noticed a notification sound coming from his room every time she received a message on her phone. Curious, she followed the sound and eventually discovered its source. To her shock, the notifications were coming from Angel's laptop. That was when she realized the truth. Angel had been monitoring her phone and spying on her entire life behind her back. Fanny wasted no time. The moment she understood what he had been doing, she packed her belongings and left without saying a single word. By the time Angel came out of the bathroom, she was already gone. Several months passed. Angel continued living alone, with no one by his side. The loneliness slowly consumed him until one day he decided to follow Fanny after work. What he discovered only made things worse. Fanny had moved on and was now in a relationship with Ricardo, Angel's former ambulance partner. Things seemed serious between them. In fact, Angel became convinced they were expecting a child together after seeing Ricardo take Fanny to a baby store. At that moment, Angel's jealousy, resentment, and obsession exploded. The darker side of his personality began taking control. That very night, he started putting together a plan. His first stop was the hospital where he used to work. There, Angel aggressively demanded morphine, claiming he needed it to manage the lingering pain in his legs after the accident. The following day, Angel approached Fanny after she finished her classes. He apologized for everything he had done and admitted that she deserved someone better than him. Then, just as unexpectedly, he said goodbye and left. Ironically, that display of remorse worked exactly as he intended. Seeing what appeared to be genuine regret, Fanny felt sympathy for him and agreed to spend some time talking with him one last time. When they arrived outside Angel's apartment building, he mentioned that he had packed up the rest of her belongings that were still inside, including her passport. He told her she was welcome to come upstairs and collect everything. Believing that Angel had finally changed, Fanny agreed. The moment they were inside, Angel attacked her. He drugged her and left her unconscious. When Fanny finally woke up, she found herself bound to a bed, with her mouth covered and her hands and feet restrained. To make sure no one heard her, Angel blasted loud music throughout the apartment and locked her inside the room. He then used Fanny's phone to send messages to Ricardo, making it appear as though she no longer wanted the baby she was carrying. Afterward, he threw her phone into a river, cutting off any chance of contact. That night, Angel settled into his twisted fantasy. He was delighted to have Fanny back in his apartment and convinced himself that things could return to the way they once were. He also revealed that he had recently seen Ricardo and learned that Ricardo and Fanny were expecting a child together. For Fanny, the situation was unbearable. She could only cry, beg for freedom, and desperately try to get help. But Angel immediately silenced her and injected her with more sedatives. Not long afterward, a neighbor named Vicente came to check on the apartment. He had grown suspicious after hearing loud music playing throughout the day, along with what sounded like a woman screaming. Vicente was especially concerned because he had seen Angel arrive earlier with Fanny. Angel quickly came up with an excuse. He claimed that the woman who had entered the apartment was not Fanny at all, but someone he had hired to keep him company. Given Angel's physical condition and the fact that he had been abandoned for months, Vicente chose to believe him and left without pressing the issue further. Meanwhile, Ricardo was becoming increasingly worried. After one of Angel's therapy sessions, Ricardo confronted him in the apartment lobby and asked if he knew where Fanny was. She had been missing for several days, and nobody had heard from her. Angel calmly claimed that he had not spoken to Fanny in a long time. Then he excused himself, saying he was feeling sick and needed to rest, before quickly returning to his apartment. Back at the apartment, Angel continued treating Fanny like a living doll. Even though she was being held captive, he changed her clothes, cared for her daily needs, and acted as if they were still living a normal life together. But Angel knew that simply removing her restraints would give her a chance to escape. To prevent that, he began injecting large amounts of sedatives into both of her legs. The drugs left Fanny temporarily partially paralyzed, and Angel intended to keep administering them to extend the condition for as long as possible. Despite her weakened state, Fanny never stopped looking for an opportunity to get away. At one point, she managed to crawl across the apartment using what little strength she had left. Rather than helping her, Angel turned on music and entertained himself while watching her struggle. Meanwhile, Ricardo was becoming increasingly desperate. He kept calling Angel and leaving countless voice messages, hoping to learn something about Fanny's disappearance. None of those calls were ever answered. Later, during dinner, Angel slipped even deeper into his delusion. He happily talked about the future, imagining that he and Fanny would soon have a child together, and even thinking of possible baby names. The reality, of course, was that the baby belonged to Ricardo. Then Fanny finally saw an opening. The moment Angel let his guard down, she grabbed a bottle and struck him in the head. For a brief second, it looked like she might escape. But before she could get very far, Angel caught her again and injected her with another dose of sedatives, leaving her helpless once more. This time, however, things were different. Because the bedroom door had been opened during the struggle, Fanny's screams carried much farther than before. Vicente immediately came to investigate. When he arrived, he found Angel bleeding from the head and became convinced that something was seriously wrong. He was ready to contact the police. But Angel remained completely calm. He insisted that nobody else was inside the apartment and even encouraged Vicente to check for himself if he did not believe him. Then, without hesitation, Angel attacked. He stabbed Vicente and killed him on the spot. Afterward, Angel contacted Fermin, the same fence who had been buying his stolen goods for years. He paid Fermin to make Vicente's body disappear without leaving any trace behind. When the detectives questioned Angel, they never seriously considered him a suspect. Seeing his physical condition and partial paralysis, they found it difficult to imagine him being responsible for Fanny's disappearance. Meanwhile, inside Fanny's room, Angel had taken his fantasy even further. He had already set up a baby crib and a stroller, fully embracing the life he imagined they would have together. Not long afterward, he woke Fanny, gave her medication, and prepared lunch for her. Despite everything she had endured, Fanny tried to make him understand that the longer she remained imprisoned, the weaker she would become, and that her condition could eventually affect the baby she was carrying. But reason no longer mattered to Angel. After everything he had done to her, he somehow believed it was the perfect time to propose marriage. To make things even worse, the ring he used was one of the stolen pieces of jewelry he had taken from a victim long ago. Fanny offered no real response. All she could do was sit there and force a smile. After breakfast, Fanny asked to use the bathroom and locked the door behind her. She was not just looking for privacy. While inside, she secretly grabbed a nail clipper and hid it in her clothing. Fortunately, Angel never suspected a thing. Later that night, just as Fanny was preparing to sleep, Angel left the apartment to buy medication for her from a nearby pharmacy. The moment he was gone, Fanny knew this might be her only chance. She immediately got to work using the nail clipper to cut through the restraints that had been holding her captive. Once free, she found a screwdriver nearby and used it to force open the bedroom door. Then she made her escape. After being imprisoned for so long, Fanny had finally made it out of Angel's apartment. But she was still partially paralyzed from the repeated injections, making every step difficult and dangerous. As she carefully made her way down the apartment stairs, disaster struck. Angel returned and caught her in the act. What followed was a desperate chase. Angel relentlessly pursued Fanny as she fought to stay out of his grasp. A violent struggle broke out, and thankfully Fanny still had the screwdriver she had used during her escape. The confrontation eventually reached a breaking point. Angel lost his balance and fell from a great height, crashing all the way to the ground below. Remarkably, he survived. Even after falling from the 7th floor, Angel was given another chance at life. This time, he was left completely paralyzed. Sometime later, a familiar face arrived. It was Fanny. She had fully recovered from the temporary paralysis caused by Angel's injections, and her pregnancy appeared to be progressing safely as well. Fanny presented herself as Angel's girlfriend, and the doctors eventually allowed her to take him home. But this was no act of forgiveness. Behind her smile was years of pain, fear, and anger. For the first time, the balance of power had completely shifted. The woman Angel had controlled, manipulated, imprisoned, and tortured now held total control over his future. Angel, once convinced he could dominate every aspect of Fanny's life, was now entirely dependent on her, and as they left together, he could do nothing except wonder what she planned to do next. The hunter had become the helpless one, and now Angel's fate rested entirely in Fanny's hands. So the moral of the story is, if your relationship requires spyware, poison, kidnapping, fake baby planning, and 3 different crimes, it might be slightly healthier to just break up.